On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, it's day one of training camp, which means everything is awesome and the Avalanche are winning the Stanley Cup. Why not? A lot to talk about, though. Let's get to it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. Follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And subscribe to our subtext. Link to that is in the show notes below. And when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. All right, we will get to our prospect gurus over here at Locked On, Hadi and Sebastian. We've had Hadi on here, you know, he's around the draft period. But they're going through the prospects of the every NHL team. They're doing their own rankings, and we have the clip that they talked about the top 5 prospects for the Colorado Avalanche. So we will play that later on. They ranked them a lot higher than the Athletic has them. I'll say that. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But where we're going to begin here, Kyle, day one of training camp. So this is kind of where I said before, like the rookie camp doesn't do a ton for me. I like it just because you're seeing some live action, but it's just like it's the opening act for the opening act of training camp, which is the opening act, right? So you got a 3 concert or a 3 band bill right here, and we're on the second opening act right now in training camp. And this is where it gets a little bit more exciting because now you're seeing the names show up and you're seeing them in practice, and it just now we're getting to the nitty gritty here. So this is a little bit more where it gets a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, this is where it really kicks off the season for me, is when you get that video, that first video. It's the quiet silence, and then you get like Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar, and you just hear the ice. You just hear him cutting up the ice, and you're like, now we're back.
And then it's just chaos because there's like so many people out there. Yeah. So and we had some a lot of clips and stuff like that we heard in the locker room, obviously. And the Avs started out the day. I think did they put this out yesterday? No, I think they put out this. I don't know when the grouping. I think it was today that they put this thing out. It wasn't yesterday. Yeah,
it was before training camp began.
Yeah. So 2 groups. And I just wanted to kind of go through them because I thought there was some interesting things here. Your first group, Drouin, McKinnon, Rantanen on the first line. Second line, Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Logan O'Connor. Third line, Oscar Olausson, Callum Ritchie, Jean-Luc Foudy.
Hold on to that.
Yeah. Fourth line, Ty Fellaber, Parker Kelly, Jason Megna. And your fifth line, Chase Bradley, Chris Wagner, and Matt Steinberg. Your defenseman, Sam Girard, Cam Makar. Second pairing, Oliver Kylington. We will get to him. Eric Brandstrom. Third pairing, Sean Behrens, Callie Rosen. And your fourth pairing, Garrett Pike and Devontae Stevens. With your goalies, Georgiev and the Mandalorian there as your second goalie. So, want me to get to the second? Just go through the second group quick, and then we'll go back over everything.
Yes, we need the second group too.
Okay, your second group is your top line: Yeri Inala, Casey Middlestat, and Kovalenko. Second line is Kivi Ranta, P.E. Belmar, Jason Poland, who I don't think was there. I think he was injured. Your third line is I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that last name, Prishapov, probably saying that wrong, and Ivan. TJ Tynan, they split those 2 guys. TJ Tynan was in the center position with Matthew Phillips, and your fourth line, Chad Hillebrand, Max Curran, and split between Shea and Wood. And then your defenders, Taves and Manson, Calvin DeHaan and Malinsky, Wyatt Amat and Jacob McDonald, Keaton Middleton and Jack Achan, and Sage Weinstein with your goalies, Annunen, Minor, and Shield. The funny thing is, like, when I was looking through this, I went right to the second group.
Yeah.
And I saw, because I just felt like, the first group is going to be like a lot of guys that you're familiar with. And then I saw on the fourth line on the right side, I saw Shea/Wood. And I was like, whoa, that is a massive demotion already for Miles Wood in day one. But then I went to group one and Miles Wood is on the second line, of course. So it was a little bit of like, what is going on there? But they have two guys with the last name Wood, apparently. But other than that, thoughts on all these pairings? That's a lot of names thrown out at people, but just wanted to get them all out there.
Yeah, it's you're seeing the Roaring 20s line.
Yep.
Seeing what they could do. The big thing that's really stood out in both groups, and this is a comment that came from Bednar himself. You mentioned it in the first group with the defensive pairings.
Yeah.
Bednar was intentional on splitting up Taves and Makar.
Right.
And Bednar said, and I quote, "They're going to have to learn to play that way."
I mean, but you really think that's going to be a lasting thing for the regular season?
I wonder if he's also trying to construct the defensive pairings like the forwards are constructed, where you have you have your. I understand Makar and Taves, they have a long history, they play well together, but I think he wants to spread some of that veteran presence and talent, and honestly get some of that hockey IQ down to that second line. It's not a demotion so much.
Right.
For Taves, but I think he wants to prolong that defensive pressure, where honestly, for the first 30 games last year, defense was suspect at best, and you were not getting your best Cale Makar and Devon Taves. So I kind of love this splitting up of that pairing and really making it like you have your hockey, you have Makar, you have Taves. It's 1-2. It's never going to stop. It's a constant pressure and wise decision making. I like both of those guys as anchors on their own defensive line.
I think where he's going with that, and I don't have a problem with it, is, you see what he does with the forwards. He maneuvers the forwards around all the time and is confident in doing that. And I think maybe he wants to infuse a little bit of that into the defensive pairings. And not to say that, when he says they better get used to that's going to be the plan all season. But if there's a matchup that presents itself where you can split those two up and kind of spread the wealth and get a little bit more, like you were saying, like get a little bit more out of, the first two pairings rather than just that top pairing being so dominant, he's gonna go that route. So I think most of the time you are going to see Cale Makar and Devon Taves playing together. That's just too much of a dynamic duo to split that up. But if it's a game where you need to split them up and put Sam Girard with Cale Makar for whatever reason, because remember when they played Edmonton and he came out and said, like, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, I don't care what defensive unit we have out there when Connor McDavid's out there. I have confidence in all of our guys to stop him. And I remember that game they did. It's very tough to stop Connor McDavid all the time. But I think that's where he wants to go. Like, I should be able to have confidence in pairings as well, of where not just what the matchup is against the other team, but I can maneuver guys up and down if I need to based on a matchup and be comfortable doing it. So you might see, I'm sure you're going to see them working together because they have to. They got to get back on the same page. But you might see a little bit of it. I'm not totally against it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of taking it in the way of, like, again, those first 30, 40 games last year, a lot of those defensive mishaps was almost like a comfortability. Like, Cale was looking for Taves and Taves was looking for Cale. And a lot of those misassignments on a lot of those goals, and even goes down to Manson and Girard, they anticipate them being there. And I feel like Bednar is kind of breaking up that comfortability. Like, you guys are talented enough to do this on your own. Like, and if you guys are anticipating that guy being there as an excuse for not making that play, let's get back to isolating you guys and separating it out and get back to your hockey talent and really expounding on your hockey IQ and getting back to where we're not making those mistakes because you don't know who's there and your senses are heightened a little bit. I feel like Bednar is trying to make things uncomfortable because that defense, they play well in those pairings, but they need to be a little bit more uncomfortable to step up just a little bit.
Yeah. One of the things that a lot of people were like, oh, they're eyebrow raising is that third line in group one of Oscar Lawson, Callum Ritchie, and Jean-Luc Foudy. And that just got a lot of people excited, including myself. That is not something that is going to hold, but hey, man, like I'm all for a kid line, and that would be an exciting line. If the Avalanche were a team like that's middle of the road and still kind of improving, I'd be pushing that line. Play that line, get those guys as much action as they can see for a season, and then you're all the more better the year after, and then they're more seasoned. I like for now it's still exciting, but the other question I have is like, how long will that go for? Because I kind of want Callum Ritchie with some veterans here so they can help him out and kind of, what veteran is going to take him under their wing, right? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So while this is fun, and man, that would be an exciting line to watch. I don't know how far this goes, but for day one, that was cool to see the three of them.
And I know their day 2 of camp is, as you're listening to this episode right now, they're getting ready for that right now. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see that kid line right up there with that Nate and Mikko line. I mean, I'd even throw them out 1 or 2 times first and know that Nathan McKinnon and Mikko are following you up and really put the pressure on and see what those guys can do. Knowing that whatever you're setting up offensively, you have the big name guys coming behind you. I want to see how they react because yes, this is interesting in this pairing and what they can do. And a kid line, we mentioned it earlier in this offseason. Like, how cool would it be for a kid line for the Avalanche? I think this could be something that could work. Like, let them all rise together because you have veterans up and down this roster. Let them see what they can do.
We'll see it. And then I liked seeing Casey Middlestat with Kovalenko on his right side. So we'll see if they can maybe, because we don't know like what's going to go on with Kovalenko or even Ritchie, where those guys are going to be. But if they can get some action together and get comfortable with one another, maybe that's a 1-2 duo if Nichushkin's not going to be there for a little while in the beginning, obviously.
Yeah, like a Casey Middlestat, Kovalenko being a Burakovsky Donskoy equivalent.
Yeah. There you go. All right, let's get our first break in. When we come back, Mikko was obviously asked about the contracts, and he made your basic comments, but we'll still talk about that. So let's get our first break in and continue to talk about day 1 of training camp right after this. Let's hear from Gametime. Gametime has a new feature on their ticketing app called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. And with Gametime Picks, it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. That's just one of the many things that we love about the Gametime app. Some of the other ones, the all-in pricing. When you toggle this feature on, you see the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You have the seat views. You get panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And Gametime's ticket coverage. Your purchase is coverage with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use Locked On NHL code for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply, so create the account and redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it, Kyle?
It is game time.
That's right. Mikko Rantanen was, of course, asked about the contract or lack thereof, and pretty much said, I want to say he said what you would expect a player to say, but he did have, it was pretty convincing when he basically said, I like this team. I like this city. I won a cup here. Why would I want to leave? Which is nice. Like that's refreshing to hear, because he could have said, I like this team. I like this city. I won a cup here. What else do I have to do? Why not try to go somewhere else? Some guys have that mindset, but he's got the mindset of, no, I want to do it again here. He doesn't have, I don't think he's got kids. So I don't want to say he's got roots there, but he's, that's where he's been for the past decade plus. So you get attached to a city, and he doesn't strike me as the guy that just wants to start city hopping and team hopping. So, I think he feels pretty confident that something's going to get done. Now it's just a numbers game. And to say that why would I want to leave? It kind of makes you feel good that, he's telling his agent, get me a fair deal, but get me a deal.
Yeah, because honestly, at his age and everything he's accomplished with the Avalanche, he could say, I like this team, I like this city, but I like money, to quote
Right.
Mr. Krabs. But you with seeing Nas chase the money and it not work out in Calgary, I wonder if that has anything to do with him saying, you know what, I think I could be okay here. And seeing Drouin's success coming in here and saying, you know what, this ain't a bad gig. I think I can settle. And he's going to get the money, whatever it ends up being, he's going to get that deal. So you can go a little team friendly. You don't have to go out there and chase like McDavid money, because you're probably not going to get that same comfortability that you get in Colorado. So he's saying all the right things, and it's the positive side of where it could go, that, hey, he's indicating he really wants to stay here no matter what it takes.
Excuse me. I think he's been around long enough to see, like you mentioned, Kadri. I think he's been around long enough to see, things like that and the opposite, and people go somewhere else and it worked just fine.
Yeah.
But I think he also understands he's in a good position here. He's good standing with the team. He's playing with two other guys that are two of the best on the planet, including himself. He knows this is a good position for him. And when you go to another team, you'll make the money, but it's no guarantee you have that camaraderie and you have, the way that him and McKinnon just play off each other. When you find that, you don't lose it. Go look at Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you find something like that, you want to keep that around, because that just makes you look so much better. I think we're all pretty confident something will get done at some point. I'm a little less confident it will get done in the preseason as I was maybe before the Draisaitl deal. And since the Draisaitl deal, I feel like it's more going to happen early in the season as opposed to now. So we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, this has one of those feels of Game 10. An Avalanche win, and then you wake up the next day, you're like, oh, let's see who gets hurt. Oh, Mikko gets a new contract. Okay, cool. And then kind of fires the guys up a little bit. But no, I feel a lot better about him sticking around, especially with this being Mikko's messaging first day of camp.
When was the Taves one? The Taves one was like November, December, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 14, 17 games in.
Something, was it that many? Yeah, it was early in the season, but that's just the vibe I'm getting. I could be completely wrong, and like you're saying, wake up tomorrow morning and there's a deal done, which could obviously happen as well. So we'll have to watch on that. No, Jason Poland, I don't think was at training camp. I think he got injured in the rookie camp, so he wasn't there for day one. And no Oliver Kylington he was there. And was skating around before practice officially started, and then was not a part of practice. And then there were reports coming out that his gear is held up in France right now. What make it make sense? What's going on? Can't you just go use somebody else's gear for a day? I don't know. I don't know how that works. I'm serious.
Yeah, I heard it was like it was held up. He's having like issues with like the immigration process, and it's a whole deal. So he's here. At least he
Yeah,
is here. The
right.
gear, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a store around. You could probably go get something in the
I
meantime.
know.
I
I don't
mean, if
you don't even need the store. You have a team that can provide that for you. I don't know. Again, I don't know how it all works, but you could have put somebody else's skates on or something. I don't know.
and to follow up, I do know Pavel as well. Andre Pavel also
Yeah.
sustained another injury, and this is
Or maybe it was him. Maybe it wasn't
yeah,
Poland. Maybe it was
it was it
Pablo.
was
So
it was
yeah.
Pavel. So
Okay.
it's another name that when we're talking like these like dark horses to make a team, this might be more of a trend because this is more of the same.
Yeah.
So it's something to keep an eye on, but
Yep.
we'll see. This is again as when you're listening to this, they're getting ready for day 2. We'll see if he shows back up, but just keep an eye on. Hey,
You know,
injuries, Avalanche or midseason form.
I mean, come on now, right? The Shillington one is put yourself in his shoes,
Yeah.
right? You come in 1-year deal, no guarantee that you're gonna be slotted into like a third pairing spot. You got to fight for that. And day one, you can't practice because your stuff is held up in another country. And you want every minute to be proving yourself that I can go out there and select me for this position. I'm not saying it puts him like 100% behind the 8 ball, but just from a personal, if it was me, I'd be like, dude, like day one, I want to be out there right now because that's when guys are just humming and you're flying around, you're overproducing because it's just day one and you got to sit on the sidelines. So it might be a little bit of a hit to the ego, but if that stuff comes in today and day 2 he's out there, everything will be okay. But you just want to get too far behind in this process.
But also, this is a training camp full of hockey guys, and this has to be the running joke all day in the locker room. Training camp is, hey, has anybody checked the mail today? Shillington stuff in. Like, that's going to be chirp.
Yeah,
And this could be his way into the locker room, how you react and how you kind of handle these kind of situations, because everybody picks up on this, and it's probably something everybody's gone through in their junior and college days. So
yeah.
this is one of those things that you could hold on to. And for locker room leaders, this is where you stand up and you see these kind of situations and you point that out and you bring guys in this way. So again, keep your eyes out on training camp day 2 and see if this is a running joke in interviews.
I'm sure they're coming up with some jokes in the locker room.
Oh yeah.
Probably, yeah. And then finally, Georgiev looks like he's got a new mask for this season. More of the style of like those like loud helmets. It's like he's like, well, it looks like a Yeti, and I'm like, bro, I can't see a Yeti. It's cool colors and everything, and he was like moving it around a lot, but I'm like, I can't find a Yeti in there. I see some teeth, but other than that, I like it's cool, but it's more of like the today style where the mask that he's used the past couple years more of like a more cleaner,
Yeah.
than very simple. And this one's just like bam. It's like a Banksy painting.
So he has a Yeti on his mask now. So he's going to Utah next year.
Oh, you did it. Now you planted that seed.
Oh boy.
All right. But I do like it. Looked like it was like a matte finish. It wasn't like that shiny stuff. So
I love the new mask and where they're going.
looks good.
I love the bold, loud stuff. It kind of like takes me back to like the 90s masks. So bring it on.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool. So all right. So that's pretty much day one. Let's get our last break in. We come back. Some of those prospects that are at this training camp, where do they rank according to our NHL Locked On NHL Prospect hosts? We'll get to that after this. We got FanDuel, and you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, but we have something a little bit different now through September 22nd. Time is running out, people. You only have 2 more days to do this. All FanDuel customers can bet $5, and they get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday out-of-market game. And all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. So make sure you are visiting FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook and get 3 weeks free of NFL Sunday Ticket. All right, so Hadi and Sebastian over at Locked On NHL Prospects still putting in work. It's never the off season when it comes to prospects. They are going through all 32 teams and giving their rankings for team prospects. And we did this with the Athletic. They have the Avalanche. They had them at 31, which was a drop. The year before they had them at 25. Well, our boys have the Avalanche at 20. Not bad.
Right in the middle.
I think the Avalanche take a lot of heat for their prospects, and some of it's warranted. I get that. But Hadi and Sebastian, like I said, they go through every team, and they got to the Avalanche at 20. So they rank the top 5. So we're going to play that clip for you now, and then discuss it on the other side. So here you go.
Into it here at number 20, we have the Colorado Avalanche, and we're going to be breaking down the top 5 prospects for each team in these segments. So let's get things started right away here with the top end prospects in the Colorado Avalanche pool. We have Callum Ritchie at the very, very top, a prospect we both like quite a bit. Talk me through what makes him the top prospect in the pool here.
Intelligence. This is a highly, highly intelligent hockey player who is probably a slightly subpar skater, but every other aspect of his toolkit is above average, whether it be the physicality, the hockey sense, obviously, the playmaking ability, the goal scoring ability, even the puck handling is really, really good with this guy. Ritchie was in his draft year kind of a one-man show with the Oshawa Generals, but had a lot more support last year with Beckett Seneca specifically there in Oshawa. And I mean, they went all the way to the OHL finals where they got beat pretty easily by the London Knights, but they were hanging in it up until then. And this is a player who I think is going to be an excellent middle six centerman in the NHL for a very long time, with significant second line upside within that. And he can also play up the lineup in case of injuries because he is so intelligent. And for me, he's like very, very clearly the pick of the litter in this Colorado prospect pool. He's the one that elevates the pool and is why Colorado is here at number 20 on our list, because he's able to really be a massive difference maker with how he processes the game. He's a dynamic player with the puck on his stick and is constantly a couple steps ahead of his opposition, especially at the OHL level. But he's a guy that I think when he makes the jump to professional hockey, it's going to be seamless. He already plays like a pro. And I think that Colorado got an absolute gem there in the late first round a year ago at 27th overall.
Absolutely. And, he's a prospect who I believe we both had ranked in the top 15 at various points in the draft year, maybe slipped out of that. I think it was 17th or something like that in my final rankings. But
he was around there for me too.
Yeah, and he was a prospect we had ranked higher than where he went for sure. I was really surprised to see him drop to Colorado, and that's what's so impressive with Colorado. They tend to pick up some really good value with their selections, even despite being perennial contenders for this at this point now. They have the likes of McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog and Makar and others, in the lineup that look really, really good, but they're still able to pick up these pieces here and there that keep them in contention in the 20s here for prospect pools. So yeah, Callum Ritchie's a great example of that. Mikhail Gulyayev is also a great example of that, and he's number 2 in our rankings here for the Colorado Avalanche. And Gulyayev is a really interesting prospect. Left shot defenseman, really mobile, really confident in his two-way skill as well. He's able to move up the ice and make offensive plays, but he's also really good at defending the rush, using his high-end skating in order to shepherd opponents to the side, kind of get them out of contention on rushes, and just a really reliable player in all 3 zones as well. But you've watched a decent amount of Gulyayev, not just in his draft year, but since. What's your read on Gulyayev overall? What's his kind of potential here for the Colorado Avalanche?
Definitely in a top 4 role. think that the amount of like lateral mobility he's able to sift into his puck rushes is one of the reasons that he does shine so brightly in transition. And I think that despite being 5'10" and 172 pounds as a left shot defenseman, he has significant upside. And especially once he does make the leap to the NHL, the amount that he'll be able to learn from players like Devon Taves, Cale Makar, obviously, but also Sam Girard. I think there's a lot of players that are, in terms of mold, approach the game in similar ways to Gulyayev, and combining the level of intelligence he has with the puck handling ability and the elite mobility really makes up for his subpar physicality. And as you mentioned, he matches skating off the rush really, really well. He's gotten a lot better with his stick work while defending transition as well. And obviously, he's not the best at defending the cycle, being 5'10", and despite the level of mobility and intelligence, he can still be exploited in those situations. Still a player that I think is definitely a net positive. And the amount of value that Colorado got here out of their two late first rounders in 2023 is spectacular, with both Ritchie and Gulyayev. But they're not the only names in this prospect pool. There are other players that we also like a bunch. Start me off here with Sean Behrens, our number 3 guy in this prospect pool, who you watched a bunch last season with the University of Denver in all of the Z William tape.
Absolutely. Sean Behrens is such an interesting prospect because he's a 5'10", 175-pound left shot defenseman, but he's one of the most violent defensemen outside of the NHL. He's really aggressive. He loves to throw the body. Very, very reliable in body-on-body situations, whether it's a net front or, battling for possession along the boards. Escaping pressure as well, something he's really good at. He's a high-end passer as well. He's able to distribute the puck really well from the back end, whether he's, quarterbacking a power play at the blue line or whether he's kind of breaking the puck out at high speeds. He was one of the reasons why Denver was so effective and won the national championship in the NCAA, is that he's just so reliable in all 3 zones. He catches you off guard with how physical he is. You think you have more space, more time than you do. You think you can handle him physically and kind of shrug him off, and he just pins you along the boards. He throws the body into you, and you're off the puck. He's a surprisingly physical player, and that works in his favor. But mainly and primarily with Behrens, it's all about hockey sense. The reason he's so good physically is because of timing. It's because of awareness. It's because of knowing when and how to apply his physical sense. The reason he's such an effective passer, same thing. He chooses the right passes, puts the right weight on him, releases a pass with the right timing, uses the right type of pass in order to move the puck up the ice. So overall, Behrens is a really interesting prospect. And then we have a pair of goaltenders here at number 4 and number 5 in the rankings. Ilya Nabokov, the KHL goaltender of the year in the KHL. He was the MVP for Magnitogorsk in the KHL as well, playoffs, and was really, really impressive. He's an undersized goalie at 6 foot. He was just drafted, but he's 21 years old. But I think there's a ton of potential here. He's already dominating in the KHL. Odds are that he moves over to North America and continues that dominance. He's a really good puck tracker, really good with his posts, really good at sealing his posts on corners and stuff like that. So just a really reliable, really smart, and really toolsy goaltender as well. And then we have Justice Annunen here at 5, who's been pretty good in the AHL so far for the Colorado Eagles. He played 14 NHL games, put it up a .928 save percentage. It is the Avalanche.
Not bad.
But that's not bad. And he's also put up a .908 save percentage in 23 games in the AHL as well. So a goaltender who's just kind of scratching the surface. He's 24 years old. He's going to age out next year from our criteria of eligibility for goalies. But I think there's decent value here. And, the Avalanche could be set with a decent goaltender moving forward in terms of the immediate. Then you have a bunch of honorable mentions. Oscar Alauson. You have Jean-Luc Foudy, who maybe hasn't developed the way we thought he would, but he's still a decent prospect. And a prospect that's a favorite of both of us because of how smart he is. Tori Pittner. I'll give you an opportunity to close off this segment by talking about Tori Pittner here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for anybody that has yet to do so, if you have an Elite Prospect subscription and access, read any article that contains Tori Pittner. There have been a couple over the last season, and whether it be an interview or even an article that was written alongside Tori Pittner, because he reads the game fantastically well. The understanding he has of his position, of his league, of just the game of hockey in general is really impressive. So a highly intelligent player whose physical tools don't quite match up with the brain, but if he doesn't make it or cut it as a prospect on the ice, he's going to have a very long career ahead of him in some type of hockey role. Very intelligent, and I mean, in terms of like his ability at sealing gaps on the rush, and really just being able to consistently shepherd play to the perimeter at the USHL level, it was very fun to watch Youngstown play in those situations last season with Torrey Pittner, especially when he was playing alongside Luke Osborne, who has a similar level of intelligence on the ice.
So eat that, The Athletic.
Yeah.
Where was that? Come on now. So good stuff though, but you always have Richie and Gulyayev 1-2, and then it's fun to see where people have the rest of the Avalanche prospects. And I thought it was interesting that they have Nabokov ahead of Justus Annunen, the guy who's there now, who we talked with Dater yesterday, saying like he could be the guy next year. I think they'll give him a shot next year. Nabokov is, and I don't have a problem with that. There is a lot of expectation for Nabokov, and rating wise, ranking wise, he is above Annunen, and when Annunen was in his draft class, so that makes sense. But they got 2 goalies on there, so and Sean Barron's at the number 3 spot. So as far as what you like from top to bottom, okay, there you don't have it's very top heavy, but that's who you're going for. Like those are the guys that you want to work out as the guys at the top, and the guys at the top that they have right here, hopefully keep the Avalanche going for a few more years.
I think the Nabokov pickup, inflated the ratings, because I think I agree. Like he could, depending on how he translates to the game in the NHL, I feel like he could just overtake Justus, and this could be his gig, because I mean, he comes in highly touted, and this is what the Avalanche need. We talked about, you brought it up, is this time for the Avalanche to finally pay for like that A1 like poster goalie? Nabokov has that potential, so it could happen.
Yeah. So, that we like our NHL prospect guys for the simple fact that they rank them a lot higher than other people. So,
yeah, they're cool.
We only hire the best. We only hire the best that suit our interests.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everyone. So that will wrap it up for today, and that will wrap it up for this week. So thank you, as always, for making this your first listen of the day. For Monday, we're going to kind of do a primer kind of episode, just where we're at with the roster, the forwards, defensemen, goalies, because that's when preseason games start. So everybody's kind of getting back into the hockey mode. So we figured good time to just reset and say, hey, this is what's going on in the Avalanche world. And we'll kind of kick that off on Monday's episode. So stay tuned for that. But until then, like we said, thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you guys on Monday. Enjoy the weekend.